Very much.
Oh, a wizard right there in front of me. Okay, welcome to the stage. I'm Will Foxley, founder of Blockspace Media. We're a B2B publication for Bitcoin, joined by Dovey of Primitive Ventures and Wertheimer of Taproot Wizards. Udi, we're going to start off with you today. When does ETH become a sidechain for Bitcoin?
Well, first of all, thanks everyone for having me. I'm slightly disappointed, Will, that you're not wearing the shades as we previously agreed, but that's okay. Yeah, ETH has always been a sidechain. You know, one of the cool things is I'm really happy that I got the opportunity to speak here. I wanted to be with you guys in person, but it turns out everyone who has to, in order to get into the venue, you literally have to get an Ethereum wallet and get your ticket into your wallet. I couldn't do it. So I'm going to do that remotely, sadly. But look, Ethereum is great, and I think that Ethereum will help scale Bitcoin. It has, so it's very promising.
Awesome. Okay, well, in all seriousness, we're here to talk about JPEGs on Bitcoin, conversation we could not really have a year ago. Well, close to a year ago. Ordinal's launch, about a year ago. So we're going to talk about that with Taproot Wizards, and then Dovey's at Primitive Ventures, which has been investing in many things, including stuff that's not Bitcoin, Dovey, but that's okay.
Yeah, but we have been sponsoring independent Bitcoin developer because previously as a investor, it's very hard to find venture scaled investment in the whole Bitcoin universe, because I think a lot of last generation Bitcoin founder is too fundamentalist or too in a pure form, and so they just want to build the tech, and we are in for the tech, but we have to respect the pump as well, right? I think the last generation Bitcoin founders, and they're more idealistic, and this generation they're more expressive, and so that's why Ordinal actually made Bitcoin expressive as well, right? And then so we should talk about Opcat, we should talk about Covenant, and all these things that can potentially make all other Ethereum compatible application also available on Bitcoin.
Well, unfortunately, Jeremy Rubin made me sign a memo, and I'm not allowed to talk about Opcat on this panel since Udi's here. So we'll just gloss over that maybe until the end. Let's talk about Bitcoin investments really quickly. Talk about last year, inscriptions came onto the roadmap. A few people were already looking at what can we do with Bitcoin, Bitcoin Season 2, Bitcoin Renaissance, a lot of phrases that Udi has coined for us, if you will. How did the investment landscape change from last year till now, Dovey? What were some things that you guys are looking at? You're like, we couldn't do this a year ago, but we can now.
I think first of all, it's more about the mindset change, because previously Bitcoin is more about generational wealth, and then it has to it has to just not your key, not your coin, and then so Udi remember last cycle is have fun staying poor, right? And so I think this cycle, and we have seen a lot more younger, younger users, and especially in China, Korea, Vietnamese, and majority of the Ordinal trading volume coming from China, so pretty much Asia thing. And so I think that's pretty fascinating to me, because on one hand we have ETF, so we have ETF approved in the West, and all the boomer basically just buying ETF, and on the other hand, so in Asian market and all the young Asian users, and then just thanks to the push from miners from CX, OKX and Bybit, and then many other just wallet providers back in Asia. So they basically make trading Ordinal, flipping JPEG on Bitcoin pretty easy. So that's why I think before Ordinal and just this, so everything we invest in Bitcoin is a highly centralized infrastructure, either mining pool, mining facility, and those things are just a traditional business, right? So it has nothing, so very little on-chain element. And then, or you can invest in things like Lightning and 1.2 billion or 1 billion valuation, but it's kind of, it's probably under-deliver a little bit, and then also no path to a venture scale business. So And we have seen a lot of like Bitcoin layer 2 popping up, and so one of them surpassed like 2 billion TVL already. So like that's also one of our portfolio. And then so no one heard about this until recently, and like even Nick Carter like only so Nick only heard about this like yesterday. So just like imagine like the divergence between East and East. So between West and East.
We'll stick with that for a second, and then Udi, we'll go back to you and talk about Taproot Wizards. Why do Asian bidders like BRC20 so much? Like, how did that catch the attention
Fair
of
launch,
Asia?
yeah. So Udi, you can talk more about that, but for me, it's fair launch. Yeah, it's like the spirit of like, so it's the spirit of like the OG cypherpunk, right? Yeah.
Udi, I'll throw it to you as well. Why do people care about BRC20s? And I bought a few of them, and I bought all the wrong tickers. Like, I thought Doge BRC was going to go up. It didn't move at all. And then all the random ones did go up.
Yeah, I think Dovey hits it right on the head. It's the launching mechanism that it had, which is really novel and unique. It uses block space consumption. It uses Bitcoin block space consumption in order to issue new units of the token. That's something, actually, I think that on Ethereum there was a project called Zen, I think, in the past that did something similar. And essentially, you need to consume block space, you need to create transactions, pay high transaction fees in order to get units of the new token. And that is relatively fair in the sense that it's very hard to game. You get what you put in. So I think people like that. It was very unique to BRC20s.
So Taproot Wizards is a JPEG house that is trying to Trojan horse an OpCat. That's how I would summarize it these days. What would you pitch it as?
Yeah, look, Taproot Wizards really is a community, and the goal is to make Bitcoin magical again, right? And we started this a year ago, back when everyone laughed at us and said that ordinals are not going to catch on and nobody's going to care for it, and the Bitcoin developers wouldn't allow it, and the laser eye podcasters will reject it. Everyone told us that, and it turns out they're a little bit wrong. It turns out that people do want to do magical, fun things with Bitcoin. And it's kind of obvious now. But I think that's another point that Dovey made that I really like, is about the kind of polarization between like the ETF stuff and then the on-chain degeneracy with ordinals, which actually I think works really well. It's very, very healthy for Bitcoin. We could have ended up in a situation where anyone who wants to hold Bitcoin just goes to one of the ETFs, parks their funds there, and no one really interacts with the chain. No one really takes self-custody of their funds anymore. That would have been a bad outcome. I think one of the greatest things about ordinals is that it creates like this new vibrant community where people interact with Bitcoin every day on-chain in very high volumes today. And that becomes like the main reason. If you look at what people do on chain, it's mainly like ordinals trading. So it becomes the main reason to interact with the chain, the main reason to hold funds in self-custody. And it's a good balance. You have the ETF for like the big institutions, which is great, but you also have like the on-chain degeneracy for those who like that. I think it's a very healthy balance, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of wild to have Bitcoin just won 2 strokes in a row, ETFs and then ordinals. How do investors look at this landscape? So Dovey, to you, like we have all these L2s launching. That's great. But there's also this inscription landscape, which is a little bit more vibrant, a little bit more put together. Like on a technical front, it's actually like more sophisticated and works. As opposed to these L2s, like they're kind of cobbled together. People are figuring it out. It's much like the Ethereum rollup ecosystem in 2020. How are you guys looking at these different L2s and being like, this is a good investment, this is something worth putting our LP money into?
Yep. So first of all, because we don't have any outside money, so it's basically all like the team's money. So we can do anything that can be crazy, like super crypto native, and so when it comes to like Bitcoin L2 investment, so my thesis like as of now, so like we have to wait. Like first of all, and I think like BitVM, like BITVM, like not the Bitcoin VM, like BitVM is like an interesting innovation now, and. So my expectation is in probably 1 to 2 years, and so when like BitVM become a thing, and like BitVM like likely gonna be like a public good, like there will not be like a tokenized like BitVM like whatsoever, right? And so once that BitVM become available, and then so it would be like a race for whoever can build like the first working optimistic rollup. on Bitcoin. So which means like the technicality wise, like there's no like entry barrier, so in like 2 years horizon. So it will be engineering, it will be implementation, so it will probably be like go to market. So for us now, because I believe in like L2, like needs to have both of the monetary gravity, and that is at TVL, and then also like the monetary velocity, and like that is at the on-chain activity on the L2. So far, so I basically rank like all the L2 like to see who has like the highest like TVL, and then so we basically made an investment there. So we invest in like the 2 highest at TVL, and one is like Merlin, and so they've surpassed at 2 billion TVL, and like the other one is BounceBit, it's like 500 million TVL. And so because like once you have the TVL as the moat, and then so you can use this like 2 years like time frame to really like cultivate your community over there, and then so have like good user retention. So I think like that's like an invaluable asset, like comparing with the other like upcoming layer 2. And then we're also evaluating like a bunch of others, and then so like which are also interesting. But like this is our current thesis. And also I want to ask this to Will and like Udi as well, because like assuming like OpCat gonna approve, just like be a real thing, and so in about let's say 5 years, and then so I don't want to be like too optimistic here. So let's say like OpCat gonna be available in like 5 years, and then so there can be a possibility to have like a trustless bridge on from the layer 1, and then so potentially like we can actually do like a full-on optimistic like ZK rollup, and so that's possible, right, Udi? And I think like that is like a trophy like rolled up, like or like layer 2. So in my mental model.
So yes, I would say that's fairly accurate, except for the part about 5 years. I'm gonna like.
I know
go
you
out
guys
on,
are like the lobby house now.
I think we're getting it this year. I think by the end of 2024 we're getting OpCat. To those who don't know,
Really?
A BIP
Yeah.
or actually
Really?
implemented or
on
flagging?
Bitcoin, mark your calendars.
Got 9 months.
Yeah, let's go. Let's
Can
go.
we get into
It's-
like the
it's 10
April
months.
like
It's 10
soft
months.
fork, like if possible?
I think it's very possible. So for those who don't know, OpCat is this ancient opcode. It
Yeah.
was literally in Bitcoin for the first release of Bitcoin in 2009, and the Satoshi himself disabled it a year later, just because he panicked. He disabled like 15 opcodes in one day, just because he was like, well, maybe we need less opcodes. And what happened since then, in the 15 years since then, is that developers realized that actually OpCat is way more powerful than anyone thought. And while it wasn't its original intention, you could actually use it to be extremely expressive with Bitcoin. And yeah, just like Dovey said, you definitely could use it to do like optimistic bridging to another rollup or another chain, which is really massive, I think. So it turns out it's just 10 lines of code. It's really easy. It already was part of Bitcoin. Getting it back into Bitcoin is very safe. A lot of Bitcoin devs want it, but I think that people were a little bit afraid to kind of propose a soft fork for Bitcoin and to kind of go the upgrade route. And I think that just like we've seen the Ordinals community kind of rise up and change the culture, I think that the Ordinals community is going to have a big part in upgrading Bitcoin this year too. So that's a big focus for us in Taproot Wizards, and we have the Quantum Cat collection that is all about upgrading Bitcoin. I actually really think it's going to happen this year. Things are aligning. There's a lot of devs that want that, and I think that a lot of those kind of layer 2 that you guys have been talking about, I think that a lot of them are realizing as well that if they really want to ship the things that they want to ship, they're going to need to have OpCat there.
So the pushback for upgrading Bitcoin last few years has been like, why mess with this thing? It's working. It's slowly gaining volume. It's slowly gaining price. And this year it's ripping. I mean, ETH, BTC, the pair, like Bitcoin's dominating that right now. That's always been a tug of war that people have paid attention to. So why push OpCat right now? If we have ordinals, if we have ETF, we have price going up, crushing altcoins, why do we need to upgrade it again, Udi?
You know, the last upgrade, Taproot, was during a bull market as well. A bull market actually makes a lot of things easier because you have a lot of eyes and you have a lot of interest, and a lot of people just weren't into it are now paying attention again. It actually can help, I think, to move a soft fork forward. And it's like the interesting thing is it's not really us pushing for it. It's everyone asking for it. So we've been, Bitcoin devs have reached out to us to help them promote Opcat. It's not that we kind of woke up and decided this is the thing that we need to do. I think a lot of those layer twos are realizing the same thing. We've had some of them reaching out to and saying, well, you know what? It looks like Opcat can actually fix those problems. And even mining pools and miners, we've heard about a public mining company launching an L2 just a couple of days ago. And people have asked me like, hey, how are you going to convince miners? And it's like, we're not going to need to convince miners. Miners want this.
Yeah.
Everyone wants this. So I'm actually really bullish. I think this is going to happen. I think this is something that everyone is going to want. And it just unlocks so much for Bitcoin. Instead of building those kind of crummy, centralized multi-sig bridges that end up, every bull market, those bridges end up losing like at least $500 million. Instead of doing that, we can do something that is real. I think there's going to be a bunch of demand for that.
Yeah, and so I have like a strong argument so why we need like Opcat, and so because like right now, so if you see like the ordinal volume and like their consumption on like the block space, and then so it basically like cannibalizes like CoinJoin, right? So that is actually my biggest issue why I want to push most of the ordinal volume to layer 2 and because now it's like cannibalizing CoinJoin, and then so it's basically like impacting like the potential like privacy of like Bitcoin transaction, and so like that's why I think like ordinal is like step 1, and it's basically like a Trojan horse like for us to just like activate it like Opcat, and then also like the current version of like the Opcat is much more simpler like Udi, so like correct me if I'm wrong here, so like the current version of like the Opcat is much simpler like than the version 10 years ago. It's just like a few lines of code. So like once we have the Opcat, and then so things we can build on Bitcoin layer 2 is like a native like Bitcoin vault. So it's like so it's actually smart DeFi. It's like smart BitFi, like not DeFi, right? And so like those are the things like not gonna be possible like without like Opcat. And so I remember I had a conversation with Udi just last year in Stanford, right? Like the problem with like ordinal is just like there's no much you can do beyond just like the unspent UTXO spamming the chain, and so like there's no financial interaction that you can do with it. All the vault, like all the DEXs, like can only be enabled by like Opcat and like Covenant. So like that's why I think I have been encouraging like all my portfolio and Bitcoin portfolio, Bitcoin layer 2, Bitcoin DA, and so they should unite together like to push this out.
Okay, so we still have this cultural issue though, even though we might have a good tech upgrade. What do we do with the part of the Bitcoin community that doesn't want anything to change? They want Bitcoin to ossify. Does that matter at this point, Udi? Like, is it possible to get past that loud minority?
A year ago, I would have said that loud minority is a challenge that we need to face. I think we faced it already. It's done. I think if there's one thing that's been clear to everyone looking at Bitcoin is that the kind of laser eye maximalists are just not relevant anymore. Like, it doesn't really matter what they say or think at this point. They tried to, I think one of their biggest blunders were they were publicly and openly trying to stop ordinals, and ordinals cannot be stopped. So you don't want to try to stop something that cannot be stopped and put your reputation behind that. And I think people see that now. It's a lot of podcasters, and they have a lot of really nice shows and books and blog posts, but they don't really know what they're talking about. So the good news, though, as long as they're holding Bitcoin, they're going to be fine. So they don't have to understand what's going on behind the scenes if they don't want to. As long as they're holding Bitcoin, they're going to be perfectly fine.
Dovey, to you, last question. Can the ETH community and Bitcoin community find better ground to talk with each other because of ordinals, or is this going to drain one side of the other's bags?
Yeah, so I think it's very, very like synergistic, and because like the Bitcoin layer 2 like execution can be EVM, and then so like most of the Bitcoin layer 2 are EVM execution, and so because like the blockchain is not like it's not monolithic, and like Ethereum becoming modular, and then so now we have like, if we can have like opcat, like Bitcoin gonna be relatively modular as well. So in a very modular world, and then so it's all about optionality, right? So like that's why we have seen, so developer, they're like pretty pragmatic, just like application developer, they're very, very pragmatic, and they just want to utilize where like the TVL and where like just like the monetary velocity is, right? And so I think they're completely just like neutral. So it's whether Ethereum or like Bitcoin, doesn't matter, because previously Bitcoin has been silent, right? It's just like basically like sinking there like as your like wealth reserve. But like once that Bitcoin become more expressive, like become more like interactive, and so like a lot of like this developer from the ETH community like will be attracted to like the Bitcoin community as well. Yeah, so I'm very, very bullish on that.
Udi, last question for you as we wrap up here. What happens to ETH, the asset, if Bitcoin gets opcat?
You know, I'm not. ETH is going to be totally fine. I think that Ethereum is going to continue to grow and to succeed because Bitcoin is not going to be a better version of Ethereum. Bitcoin is still going to excel at being a store value, at being digital gold. But in order for Bitcoin to do those things, it needs to have more expressiveness and it needs to kind of scale better. So, you know, Bitcoin would have some of those features, but that's never going to be the main focus of what Bitcoin is. And I think Ethereum is going to continue to be this sort of like developer platform, and they can continue to coexist like they always have. But I think that the thing with Bitcoin, there's this massive growth opportunity because this is really a 0 to 1 moment where for literally almost 10 years, the capabilities of Bitcoin have been held back by this like religious group of laser-eyed zealots. And it turns out there was no reason for it. Like technically Bitcoin can do actually a lot more. And once it's not being held back, I think it's like this massive moment of Bitcoin catching up to the capabilities of other ecosystems. And there's a lot of growth in that. But that doesn't mean that Ethereum is, you know, going to disappear. Not at all. I think Ethereum going to still lead the kind of, you know, blockchain as the developer platform view.
Love it. Udi, Dovey, thank you for joining. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Will. All right. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Dovey. Thanks,